I knew something was off the second I saw the cake. It was one of those generic supermarket cakes with "Happy Birthday, Ethan" scrawled in blue gel icing. But instead of sitting in the center of the break room table, it was pushed way off to the side. In the middle of the table was the projector remote, a stack of printed slides, and my manager's laptop. My name was in frosting. His name was on everything else. Still, I told myself not to overthink it. You don't want to be the guy who ruins his own birthday by being paranoid. So yeah, this is about my office birthday party. The one where I walked in thinking I was finally going to announce my promotion. The one where my manager told me, 3 days earlier over lukewarm coffee, we should celebrate. You can share the good news with the team. The one where I honestly thought my life was about to get a little bit better. Instead, I got to find out what it looks like when someone uses your birthday as a stage to step on your neck. I'm 32. I work as a project manager in a mid-sized consulting firm. Not the glamorous kind with rooftop bars and equity packages. The kind with buzzing fluorescent lights, dusty ficus trees, and the same sad yogurt in the fridge every Monday. I'm not the loud one. I'm the guy who remembers deadlines without checking the calendar and knows which client will call 5 minutes after a report goes out. For the last year, our department has basically been held together with duct tape, caffeine, and my lost evenings. Layoffs, reshuffles, temporary hiring freezes that stopped being temporary. Through all of that, my manager, Craig, leaned hard on one line. "You're my guy, Ethan. I know you've got this." Got this meant staying until 11 p.m. to fix his slides before a board meeting. It meant rewriting proposals that had his name at the top and my work in every bullet point. It meant being on first-name terms with security, because I was the last one they saw before they locked the doors. The thing is, I didn't start off bitter. I actually liked the work. I liked solving problems, coordinating moving parts, seeing a mess turn into a finished project. I told myself the under-the-radar part was temporary. That's what they tell you, right? Put your head down, do good work, someone will notice. Someone did notice. Just not in the way I thought. About 2 months before the party, Craig started dropping hints. "You know, Ethan, we're going to need someone to step up into a senior role soon. That client loves you. I've been talking to leadership about how to reflect that. Don't worry about the title yet. These things take time." That last one came with a hand on my shoulder and a rehearsed smile. I should have heard the alarm bell. Instead, I heard hope. The week before my birthday, we closed a brutal project. 3 months of scope creep, last-minute changes, and a client who thought urgent meant I had a thought in the shower. I held that thing together with spreadsheets and stubbornness. When we finally got the email saying, "Great work, team," Craig called me into his office. He closed the door like he was about to tell me a secret. "So," he said, leaning back in his chair, "I've had some good conversations with upper management." My heart did that stupid thing where it kicks up before your brain catches up. "We're finalizing some changes," he went on, "but I'd say your promotion to senior PM is, what did HR say? Strongly anticipated. Basically done. Just waiting for the paperwork." I must have smiled because he grinned like we were in this together. "Listen," he added, "your birthday's next week, right? I was thinking we make it fun. We'll do a little break room thing, cake, coffee, you know the drill. And if everything lines up, you can share the good news. You've earned a moment." Those words stuck in my head for days. You've earned a moment. I went home that night and told my sister on the phone, "I think it's finally happening." I didn't tell my parents yet. I wanted something concrete before I put that expectation in their heads. But I did lie in bed and imagine how it would feel to stand in front of the team and say, "I'm moving up." The morning of the party, I got to the office early like I always do. The building was still half asleep. The cleaner's cart was parked by the elevator. I made my own coffee because the machine on our floor was still sputtering out yesterday's grounds. In my inbox, there was a calendar invite from Craig. Team huddle, 3 p.m. Break room. No details, just that. I stared at it too long. then minimized the window and tried to focus on my task list. I told myself I didn't care how it looked, as long as the promotion was real. The day crawled. People passing my desk kept saying the same script. Big day, birthday boy. Got plans tonight? Hope they at least got you something better than last year's cookies. I smiled, made jokes, checked my watch. At around 2:45, I saw Craig through the glass wall of his office, stacking printed slides and slipping his laptop into a sleeve. He caught my eye and gave me a thumbs up, like we were about to go pitch a client together. Ready? He said as he stepped out. Yeah, I answered, and my voice sounded steadier than I felt. The break room was already half full when we walked in. Someone had hung a happy birthday banner that drooped in the middle. A few small balloons were taped to the cabinets. The cake sat there, waiting, shoved to the edge of the table like an afterthought. Maria from HR handed me a flimsy paper crown. Come on, put it on, she laughed. I did, because that's what you do. You play along. You don't make waves at your own party. Craig clinked a plastic knife against his coffee cup. All right, everybody, he called out. Can I steal you for 5 minutes? Conversations tapered off. People shifted, forming a loose half circle around the table. I ended up standing just to his right, close enough to see the tiny stain on his shirt collar and the notes scribbled in the margin of his printouts. This is just a quick thing, he said, doing that fake modest wave. We're here to celebrate Ethan's birthday, of course. He gestured toward me, and everyone gave the polite little cheer. But also to talk about some exciting news for our team. My chest tightened, but in a good way. For 1 second, it really did feel like this was it. He rested his hand on my shoulder like he was framing the moment. If you've worked with Ethan, he went on, you know how hard he's worked on our biggest accounts this year. The results we've achieved have opened some incredible doors for the department. I heard the words, but there was something off about the way he said, we've achieved. Too smooth. Too practiced. He squeezed my shoulder once, then let go and straightened up, letting his voice carry. And as of this week, he said, there's been a promotion. People started clapping automatically. I felt my face heat up. I swallowed, suddenly aware of how tight the paper crown felt on my head. Craig smiled wider, the kind of smile I'd seen him use with clients, right before he sold them something they didn't really need. Effective immediately, he said. I'll be stepping into the role of Director of Client Delivery for our region. I didn't react at first. My brain lagged behind the sound in the room, like the words had to travel through water to reach me. People were clapping, louder this time, and Craig was doing that humble brag head tilt he practiced in every mirror in the building. I just stood there, one hand on the edge of the plastic table, fingers digging into it like it could keep me upright. Then it hit me. He wasn't announcing my promotion. He was announcing his. And none of this would have been possible, he continued, without the incredible results our projects delivered this quarter. He motioned to the projector where a slide appeared with a list of milestones, every single one pulled from my work, my late nights, my weekends, my silence. I stared as he clicked through the slides I'd built myself, each bullet point a tiny betrayal I hadn't seen coming. We really pushed innovation on the client side, he said, nodding proudly toward the screen. A murmur of approval went through the room, except innovation meant me rewriting his broken plan 2 days before the launch, but he didn't mention that. We strengthened our communication processes, he added, except that meant him forwarding my emails to leadership without my signature line. And of course, he said, putting a hand to his chest as if he were about to cry, we navigated some difficult moments as a team. Difficult moments. He meant the week he left early for golf, and I stayed until midnight to fix the fallout. Someone whispered near me, "Oh, wow, good for him." Someone else said, "Director damn." I swallowed hard. My throat was tight. Craig finally turned back to me as if remembering I still existed. And as for Ethan, he said brightly, I'm excited to share that we've updated his responsibilities as well. My stomach dropped. He lifted a folder from the table, my folder, one I hadn't seen before, and held it like a participation trophy. We're implementing a slight restructure in his role, he said. To give him room to grow, he'll be stepping into more support-focused tasks while we align expectations. Support-focused. Expectations. Every word was a corporate shovel. And, he said with a grin that didn't touch his eyes, HR has put together a development plan to guide him through the next quarter. There it was. He said it fast, casually, like it meant nothing. But people heard it. A development plan wasn't a reward. It was a warning, a neon sign that said, "This person is slipping." Except I wasn't slipping. Someone else was pushing. The room was silent now, the wrong kind of silent. A few coworkers looked at the floor. One person actually winced. Maria from HR gave me the sympathetic head tilt she usually saved for people being laid off. Craig clapped his hands. "All right, let's cut the cake." He moved on, just like that, like he hadn't just handed me my birthday in pieces. I forced myself to move, forced myself to smile, forced myself to hold a plate and take a slice and listen to people say things like, "So, congrats, I guess. It'll work out, probably. Hey, at least the cake's good." I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. If I opened my mouth, I wasn't sure what would come out. After the crowd thinned, Craig stepped beside me at the counter where I was scraping icing off my fork. "You okay?" he asked lightly. "You looked surprised." "Surprised?" "Right. I thought the promotion was—" I started. He cut me off with a chuckle. "Promotions take time, Ethan. Paperwork, alignment, calibration. You know how it works." "Then why tell me?" "Because I want you motivated," he said, lowering his voice. "But I also need you realistic. Senior roles require maturity, stability, client presence, things we're not quite seeing yet." He smiled like a dentist about to drill. "This development plan will help. Follow it well, and we can revisit the title next cycle." Next cycle. In corporate language, that meant not this quarter, not next quarter, maybe never. I stared at the folder in my hand, my birthday, my party, my humiliation. "That's all," Craig added, patting my shoulder like I was a teenager who'd missed curfew. "Grab some cake for later. You earned it." He walked out. I stayed. Not because I wanted to, because my knees felt like glass. I went home that night carrying the leftover cake in a flimsy plastic clamshell. For a while, I just sat at my kitchen table, staring at the frosting smudged inside the lid, and that's when it hit me fully. The clarity, cold and sharp. Craig never intended to promote me. He intended to use me. And today was the first time he felt bold enough to do it in public. But that was just the beginning. I didn't sleep much after that. Not because I was angry. Anger would have been easier. What kept me awake was the realization that everything suddenly made sense. Every mixed signal, every almost compliment, every not yet but soon. Craig hadn't been preparing me for a promotion. He'd been preparing me for sacrifice. By Monday morning, something in me had shifted. I walked into the office the same way I always did. Same elevator, same coffee, same hallway with the flickering light. But I wasn't the same person moving through it. I wasn't the one waiting for permission anymore. I was done covering for him. The first test came at 10 a.m. A weekly client call, the one Craig usually dominated with buzzwords, and our team has been exploring solutions. But that day, when the client thanked him for the revised project roadmap, I spoke up before he could respond. "Just to clarify," I said evenly, "the revised roadmap came from the prototype I built last Thursday night. I'll send the documentation after the call." Craig's head jerked up, eyes widening. He didn't correct me. He couldn't. The client paused, then said, "Good to know, Ethan. We appreciate your work." Craig forced a smile so tight it looked painful. After the call, he closed the conference room door behind us. "Hey," he said, all faux calm. That comment wasn't necessary. "It was factual," I replied. His jaw tightened. "Be careful, Ethan. You don't want to look reactive." "I'm not reacting," I said. "I'm documenting." He didn't like that word. Documenting makes people nervous. Documenting means you're done letting them build fires and call it leadership. I walked out before he could finish his little speech. Over the next days, I built a paper trail so thorough it could have been a training manual. Every deliverable was version controlled. Every meeting recap copied HR and the VP. Every decision was time-stamped and attributed. I didn't exaggerate anything. I didn't twist anything. I simply wrote the truth in places where Craig couldn't erase it. And the truth was ugly. Emails where he'd forwarded my work under his name. Performance notes that contradicted actual metrics. Requests he'd ignored but later claimed credit for solving. Messages where he told me to polish his broken drafts minutes before deadlines. I didn't show the VP everything. Not yet. I just left breadcrumbs, clear, undeniable ones, in the places where they'd naturally be found. Then something unexpected happened. A quiet ally appeared. One evening, after a project review, the client rep, a blunt, older guy named Harris, stayed behind on the call. "Mind staying for a minute, Ethan?" he asked. Craig had already left the meeting early for another commitment, so it was just the two of us. Harris leaned back in his chair. "I've been in this business a long time. I can tell when someone's doing the work and when someone's presenting the work." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. "Your manager's been overconfident," he said. "We've noticed." My pulse kicked, but I kept my voice steady. I just try to deliver what's needed. "And you do," he said. "In fact, I'll make sure the right people hear that." It was subtle, but it was leverage, the kind money can't buy and politics can't bury. And then everything accelerated. Quarterly town hall, a big one. The one where Craig was scheduled to present his flagship project and officially step into his director role. He handed me a flash drive earlier that week. "Put together the deck," he said. "Big moment for the department." I did exactly what he asked, but not the way he expected. The slides were clean, professional, and accurate. Painfully accurate. Every milestone had a date. Every date had an owner. Every owner field contained the real contributor. My name. Not his. Not out of spite, out of record. When I showed him the draft, he flipped through it too fast. "Looks good," he said. He didn't notice the attributions, but someone else did. The morning of the town hall, I got an email notification on my phone. From Harris. Short, direct. "Be in the room. We'll say a few words too." I read it twice. Then I understood exactly what was coming. And then silence. The kind that means something's gone wrong. The auditorium wasn't fancy. Just a rearranged conference space with folding chairs and a weak projector. But that morning, it felt like a courtroom. People filed in slowly, coffees in hand, the low murmur of office politics buzzing under the surface. Craig walked to the front like he owned oxygen. New suit, new title, new swagger. He didn't look at me, not once. The VP sat near the stage. HR had a whole row. And then, slipping in quietly, the client rep, Harris, took a seat near the aisle with a folder tucked under his arm. Craig tapped the mic, cleared his throat, and began his victory lap. He walked everyone through the quarter's accomplishments, using the deck I'd built, the one with all the real attributions printed in plain view. He tried to glide past them, speaking quickly, adding commentary that didn't match the evidence on the slides. But people noticed. I saw a few heads tilt, a few frowns, a few glances exchanged. The room wasn't against him, not yet, but it wasn't with him either. "And finally," Craig said, smiling proudly, "this project represents the best of what our department can achieve under strong leadership." He looked at the VP when he said, "strong." He looked at the room when he said leadership. He never once looked at me, and then he stepped back, expecting applause. It came. Soft. Uneven. That's when Harris stood up. "If I may," he said, voice carrying just enough authority to hush the room. Craig turned, surprised. He hadn't invited any remarks. The VP leaned forward. HR glanced up from their notes. Harris walked to the front, ignoring the mic, speaking like a man who didn't need amplification. "I want to call out someone important," he said. someone who solved issues at 2 a.m., someone who caught problems before they became disasters, someone who actually built what we presented today. The room went still. Craig's smile froze in place, like someone had unplugged his face muscles. And that someone, Harris continued, is Ethan. People clapped before they thought about it. Instinctive. Real. It hit Craig like a slap, because in that moment, the narrative shifted. Not dramatically, not explosively, just enough for everyone to see the edge of the truth they'd been ignoring. Then Harris added the line Craig couldn't recover from. And I'll be blunt. If the goal is to keep this client, you'll want Ethan leading projects at a senior level, not supporting them. He didn't have to say anything else. The implication was clear. Crystal, the VP, stood. Craig, she said quietly, can you stay after? HR as well. Ethan, you too. Craig tried to laugh it off in front of the room. Of course, ha, always open to feedback. But his voice cracked, just slightly, enough for the first fracture to show. When the town hall ended, he gestured for me to walk with him, but HR intercepted. Craig, one of them said, meeting room 3. Now. He went pale. I followed a different HR rep into another room, not as a suspect, but as a witness. They'd already reviewed the email chains, the version history, the attributions. My documentation wasn't dramatic. It wasn't embellished. It was clean. Clean is lethal. By the time the VP joined us, the tone was already set. We've identified inconsistencies in Craig's reporting, she said, a pattern, and the decision to place you on a development plan doesn't align with your actual performance metrics. I nodded once. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. Behind the glass, through the thin blinds, I could see Craig in the next room. Talking fast, gesturing too much, shoulders rising and falling. He looked like a man trying to bail water out of a sinking boat with his bare hands. Eventually, someone closed the blinds. By Friday, his name disappeared from the org chart. By Monday, his office was empty. No announcement, no farewell email. Just absence, the corporate kind, cold and clean. HR met with me again the next week. Direct, professional. We'd like to move you into the senior PM role, they said. Officially. Effective immediately. I didn't ask for it twice. I didn't need to. The work changed. The respect changed. The room changed. Months passed. The fog lifted. And then one afternoon, someone brought out a small cake. No banner, no speeches, no projector. Just 5 coworkers and a candle. A happy birthday, Ethan. This time the cake was in the center of the table. No folders, no announcements, no ambush. Just a moment I could actually breathe in. On my walk home afterward, the city felt quieter. Not empty, just mine again. The kind of quiet that doesn't sting or echo. I didn't get revenge in the Hollywood way. No shouting match, no dramatic exit. What I got was better. I got my work back, my name back, my future back, and the peace that comes from finally refusing to carry someone else's crown. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it signs paperwork. Sometimes it closes a door. Sometimes it just quietly hands you the life you should have had all along.